Hello and welcome to the Daily Atheist Morning Show. It is Friday, finally Friday. We made it to Friday. Friday, March 20th, 2020. And you're not going to believe this. I have got Aron Ra on my show. The Aron Ra and Damien Marie AtHope are both on my show today. They're here. Jim Majors is also going to be here. Maybe. I screwed up. I have to step out and apologize as we go through. You won't see Jim for a little bit maybe because I screwed up and didn't send him the links. No, he is not here yet. So my fault. I have sent him the links. Hopefully he'll join us. So real quick, let me introduce you to Damien Marie AtHope, my guest host.
Hi.
You guys have met him before. He helps me out on Fridays and Mondays, guest host the show. And we have Aron Ra. Now he's just been lighting up the show, right? So I created a special graphic for Aron Ra. And of course, he probably can't see it, but hello, everybody. How are you guys doing?
Hey.
Good morning, Damien. And again, I would introduce Jim, but man, I forgot to send him the links. Let me confirm here that everybody can. I've been having some technical issues. I'm just making sure the chat's not saying they can hear us all. So that's wonderful. Damien, thank you for joining me again. Aron, thank you so much for coming on the show. I have a funny story real quick before we get started. I was going to tell Jim. Jim can watch this later. I sent out a tweet to everybody going, man, I got a hell of a show going on. I had Friday open, and in there I thought, well, I'll just say, Aron Ra, And so I said, what are you doing Friday, Aron Ra? And I sent out the tweet, and I didn't think nothing of it. But I had Friday to fill, right? And I ran into Jim, and I invited Jim, and Jim said, he would come on the show. So I got Jim on the show, and I agreed to have Jim on the show. Jim, wonderful guy, I guess. I don't know. He might be an ass. Anyway, and then Kristen, best name ever, the most wonderful person in the entire universe, she got with Aron and, brought it to his attention that I had said the thing. And Aron said, sure, he'll be here. So now I got 4 people. And so normally I wouldn't have so many people guests on my show. But I'll have as many pets as you want. I don't know if he can hear it or not, but yes. So that's why everything is going all the hell in whack. And then Jim, of course, on top of everything, I forgot to send Jim the link, so it's all on me, guys. So thank you all, guys, for joining me on the show. Aron, if you don't mind, would you introduce yourself to the people whom surely everybody here knows you?
Yeah, for the last several years, I've been a secular activist. I am trying to gain some traction against the religious right and their orchestrated attempts to fill every state and federal political office with right-wing Christian dominionists,
Right. Christian
nationalists, to try to undermine everything that our First Amendment used to stand for.
Yeah, and they've got quite a thing going. I've been watching with American Atheists. We've been flirting with the idea of me joining the American Atheists, and they've brought to my attention some of the things going on with Project Blitz. And then we also have the thing going on in Kentucky where they're having what do they call it? Their right to not give somebody care based on their religious belief. And then Florida, the moment of silence they're pushing on the kids.
Because Christianity is all about discrimination and evading responsibility.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. And it's a sad thing that the Christians will say that the reason that we have freedoms is Christianity, and then try to put in laws that actually remove the freedoms that they claim supposedly came because of Christianity.
I often hear the thing that it's freedom of religion for Christian religion. You're free to worship Jesus however you see fit.
Right. But that's only until everybody's Christian. And once everybody's Christian mostly, then it's how you worship. And then they start burning each other down for what they've demonstrated throughout history, that they will kill each other for the various differences.
You mean Protestants and Catholics will actually go to war with each other?
Maybe. Well, hell, Protestants will go to war with Protestants.
Yeah, they absolutely will. And it's all tribalism. It's all about how divisive they can possibly be. Yeah. And that's why there's like 30,000 different denominations just of Christianity, and they are often violent against each other. And everybody's saying that all of the others are going to go to hell. And there seems to be as many different versions of Christianity as there are people in the pews.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Oh, but it's always the absolute truth for all of them.
Yeah, it's amazing how. Oh hell, yeah! It's amazing how they all seem to have it to where they're the ones. They've got the answer. They're right. They know best. You know what I mean?
Well, it's a lot worse than that. I mean, I see all religions in general, just not just Christianity, but all of them seem to be all about lying. It's how well you can lie, how comfortable you can be at lying, and how confident you can sound when you are lying. For example, Kenneth Copeland, who's a local Dallas minister, who a few years ago he advised all of his congregation to be faith healed instead of inoculating their kids. So no, he's an anti-vaxxer, right? Tells his congregation not to get vaccinations. He's going to faith heal them, and as a result, there was an outbreak of measles that was traced to his congregation.
I remember.
And now, more recently, in the last week or so, he tried to cure people of coronavirus over the TV.
Yeah.
And he then demanded that all these people who are losing their job and losing their paycheck because they're now being forced to stay at home, that they should physically come to the church and slide their tithing under the door. And that they had better do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, tithing under the door.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know, it's just amazing to me that they're all powerful. God needs money so bad. You know, you would think the interest alone on the money they have in the bank would be enough to, you know, they could just stop and still make money on the interest alone.
Well, they have to buy them cars.
They have to do God's work for exactly the reason that God can't do any work himself.
Right.
So that's why the Bible is very explicit in how to build the ark to put the animals in, how to build the ark to put the covenant in, how to build the tabernacle, and exactly what type of fine threads and jewelry should be woven into Aaron's robes.
Yeah, yeah. Because those things are important.
No. Well, it's what I've noticed is that God can create planets and dinosaurs and everything that humans can't make. But he can't make anything humans can make. He can't make a bomb or a boat or a building or a book. He needs people to do all of these things, just exactly as if he wasn't really there.
Huh, strange.
Yeah. Well, and that includes Jesus, because supposedly Jesus came down and spent his 33 years of his life to just not write a book. I mean, not even write down a word. I mean, imagine that if you could actually believe that someone was the savior and planned all this and yet doesn't write anything. I mean, what kind of a story is that? Seriously.
Yeah, the guy who atones for all our sins, and yet we still have sins. And we're still going to hell unless we believe. But didn't he? What the hell did he do?
Right.
What was the sacrifice all about?
Right.
You know, I read this beautiful joke. And Christians won't get this because they don't understand mythology. They think that Jesus was the only person that was ever crucified. They don't realize that Prometheus was crucified on this rock for like 10,000 years because, you know, he's immortal and therefore he's a god, so he doesn't die. And that this vulture comes down and eats his liver every day, and his liver, of course, grows back because he's an immortal being. And so he spends 10,000 years in crucifixion. And so there's a god party. And Jesus shows up, and Prometheus is there, and Jesus tells Prometheus about his 3 days in hell, and Prometheus' response is, "Wow, sounds like a bummer of a weekend, dude."
Yeah, no doubt.
Exactly. But what to me what was weird is how come the story isn't seen this terrible? Because in a sense, Jesus has to suffer for a God that can't forgive without torture. I mean,
God's all about scapegoats, isn't he? Right? I mean, if God can do absolutely everything, why can't he do what I can do? Why can't he forgive without conditions? Why does he have all these conditions in his unconditional love?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You know, I got to do a self-shield here. I'm doing a series called The Evil God Monster of Abraham. And that's where I'm going through the Bible chapter by chapter. I'm in Genesis 9, fixing to start working on Genesis 10. And the whole purpose of the series is to exemplify how the God of Abraham is just this horrible, disgusting creature. I mean, it doesn't take a lot. I'm sitting there thinking, oh no, I got to sit down and write another video. Okay. And I open up Genesis on the internet, and I just read through the current chapter. I'm like, oh man, this is easy. Look at this. This is horrible. So yeah, absolutely.
We have different standards, right? There are other people that the religious right also worship beyond God, and you can point out all of the imperfections in this other false deity that they worship, and it doesn't matter, right? If it's grabbing pussies, if it's bragging about sexual assault, if it's lying about having bone spurs that he didn't really have, it doesn't matter what. That everything he ever did in his life was dishonest and stupid. Both. It doesn't matter. All these things.
Yeah.
They're still going to worship. So it doesn't matter what you come up with God, right? It doesn't matter how bad God is, because the other God they worship is just as bad.
Right.
And it seems like almost for the same reason. They think that their sky god is going to send people to hell, and then they think that their terrestrial Trump god is somehow going to put liberals through hell.
And it went that way. We were doing so good. No, I'm with you.
I've lost family and friends over not over religion so much. It's like everybody that I knew that still believed in God could still forgive me for being an atheist. That wasn't a huge problem. But when I didn't worship the orange God, that's when all communication ties had to fail. That's when family and decades of friendship didn't matter anymore.
Yeah, I blocked a bunch of people. If they say they're a Trump supporter, I just block them. I obviously, because to me, I like people that are humanist. So when I see you support this monster of an anti-humanist type of a person, I can't respect you. I mean, I don't care to know you.
Well, I didn't want to make this about politics. We were just talking about how people will not view the God of the Bible as being evil, despite the fact that absolutely everything he does is evil.
That's right. I've said,
and it's much like the other God they worship. Same thing.
Oh yeah. I've said it.
So God has a discussion with Abraham, and this is a God that is supposed to be all powerful, all knowing, right? He's all wise. He knows the past, present, and future. He knows everything that you're thinking before you think it.
Depending on who you ask.
And yet, Abraham is able to barter him down. Well, what if there's only 10 righteous?
Yeah.
Well, what if there's only 5?
Yeah, right.
So Abraham is negotiating with what appears to be a 5-year-old, and that's the God we're supposed to worship. And what's the God going to do? Why is it being bartered down? Because God doesn't know how to teach anybody anything.
Right.
He doesn't know how to impart moral values.
No.
All he knows how to do is kill people when he's angry. That's it.
Yeah.
That's all. Nothing else.
Right. Wants to go stomping through and kill them all. Yep.
Well, yeah. There's even a verse where they try to take incense up to the volcano or whatever, or to where God is, and then they're all burned alive. I mean, what kind of a God is that? Like, yeah, all right.
Well, I recently read that story, and I thought it was funny because I'm working on the Evil God Monster of Abraham series. I love that. I love saying it like that. Anyway, I've been working on that, and so I went and read that, and I think it's funny in that this story, he says, he works him down to 10. Can you get me 10 people? If I can get you 10 good people, will you spare the town? He says, if you can find me 10 good people, I will spare the town. So they go in there, they find Lot's 2 daughters, that's 3, and then their husbands. We assume they are all decent people, and they found I'm going on that, and Lot's wife. So that's 6 people that we assume they were, going to take out of there, and they consider 6 people good enough. And in all that town, it doesn't even seem like they even bothered to look. It never says we looked to see if we could find any more good people. No, it's like we just went and got their shit and got them out. No.
And then God's standards are really, really low too. I mean, the Noah's Ark thing, right? The most righteous guy in the world there, Noah, and then we do the Sodom and Gomorrah thing. The most righteous guy there, Lot. Both of them, naked old drunks cursing their own kids. Right? I mean, that was Noah's deal. And then Lot's was even worse, because when his wife was conveniently removed from the equation, then he gets drunk and molests his own children and then blames them.
And blames them.
Right.
Yes.
So we know that it's not possible for a heterosexual man to be so drunk that he doesn't know that's his daughter he's screwing.
Right.
Yeah.
And still be physically able to perform the act.
That's an elderly man.
Right. So that there's no way that works.
Yeah.
So if you're capable of believing that the daughters got their father drunk to seduce him for that reason, then of course you're dumb enough to believe that the entire world was flooded or that snakes talk.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And also that it wasn't like logically that everybody who has sex one time gets pregnant. I mean, we know this. People try for years sometimes to get pregnant. So the fact that both daughters got pregnant, I mean, logically means more than one time.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to throw my 2 cents in on this because I've been down this road recently.
Are you sure you've been down this road?
No, well, Lot and he's picking on me because I'm short, right? Lot and his daughters. So he claimed, first of all, he was an old man, so old that he told the angels who were sent to the messengers or whatever, that he couldn't make it to the mountains, which he eventually made it to, right? So he was so old, he was elderly when he got there. So he was ancient in age, and then they got him so drunk on wine that he couldn't remember or didn't know it was his daughters he was having sex with. And then he was able to, barring those 2 things, he was able to get it up. So, and then produce. Okay, so now we got to look at something else in the Bible. In the Bible,
in sequence.
Well, right.
Girls back to back.
Back to back. Yes, absolutely. Now, in the Old Testament, in order to conceive a child, it is already established that only the Lord allows that to happen, because Abram and Sarai have been trying to get pregnant. Or one of them, I don't remember exactly which. They've been trying to, and it says only the Lord will allow. And we know that in the Old Testament, the reward from heaven is a long life, and to be the son, have children who are the fathers of nations, to have your lineage go on and be the father of a nation. So Lot, barring these 3, he's ancient, he's drunk, he doesn't know how, and he can still get the thing up. He has sex once each time with each daughter, and each daughter bears a son, which it means it's approved by God. And those children go on to be the fathers of nations. So this is ultimate approval by the Lord of Abraham for what has happened here. There's no more reward you could have gotten for Lot in that than his children going on to be the fathers of nations.
You know what amazes me most about these religions?
A horrible example.
Is not how stupid they all are. It's not how silly, ridiculous, or whatever that these all are. It's when I get people to admit to me that they're going to believe it anyway, even if they know it's not true.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you've heard that, but I've heard it multiple
times.
My mom said
that to me.
Yeah.
What's that?
My mom said it to me when I first almost, was just considering becoming an atheist. I kind of stopped believing. I called her and asked her about stuff I learned in school. I said, well, they showed us that Lucifer was never connected to the Bible, that people that do that are a mistranslation of the King James Bible. I said, it's even in your Bible concordance that says that that's so. And so she went and looked, and then she's like, well, yeah, it says that, but I'm still going to believe. And I was like, whoa, I'm not doing that. Oh, man, that's actually made me a stronger atheist, because I thought, wow, I don't want to be her. Yeah. I don't want to look right at the facts and go, I'm going to believe lies. I was like, wow.
So my favorite of all these admissions was, I mean, I've heard it phrased many ways. I mean, one of them was, like, well, these may be what the facts are, but I prefer to believe this, which kind of matches what you just said. But one of my favorite ones was giving a hypothetical situation to this girl. I said, okay, you have a time machine, like a TARDIS, right? You go back in time and you see you somehow are able to find a Jesus, which I don't think anyone ever could. You find Jesus, you watch him crucified, and then you watch his body rot for a week, and he never gets up.
Right.
What would be your response to that? And her response was, I know you're going to be disappointed in my answer, but I hope that my faith is strong enough to keep believing anyway.
Yeah. No, thank you.
We see that in cults, that kind of thing in cults. Real quick, I want to shout out to the chat. I was so excited about having my guests on today that I forgot to shout out to the chat. I've got lots of people in the chat, too many to actually mention, and be polite about it. But Best Name Ever has asked, I need to ask Aron Ra in just a second a question for Best Name Ever. And Paul Camish said something earlier. He said, how can God get pissed off? He already knew what was going to happen. In all those instances where we were talking about God being enraged, Paul wanted to inject that. That's kind of a good point. And then real quick, back to, of course, hi, everybody in the chat. Sorry if I miss you. Math Pig, Human, all you wonderful peoples. But Best Name Ever wants to know, how was Aron's trip to South Africa? And if me and Damien are going to do the Atheist Tattoo Power Ranger thingy. I know what she's talking about. So we'll get to the tattoo thing first. How was your trip, Aron? Or later?
Well, yeah, that was interesting. I think it was a total of 3 weeks because it takes 2 days to fly there and 2 days to fly back.
Wow.
I wish I could have bought the ticket, because if I had been able to pay for the ticket myself, it would have been only $40 more, and I would have been able to spend 11 hours in Zurich. And that would have been nice because it was during the day. I would get out of the airport at like 10:30, and I had to be back at the airport at like, at 9 or 10, something like that. But I would have the whole day in Zurich, Switzerland. And there was a half a dozen people that said that they would take me out to someplace where I can get a shower, and then we do lunch, we do dinner, we go see things, and we talk and get on video and have interviews and everything. That was going to be really good. But I couldn't do that. And so the school was financing the trip, and they booked me a flight through Doha, Qatar. And I would rather not be in Qatar again, but it's okay. I have to go there, and then it's like 17 hours and then 9 hours. And so that's without a shower. So you can imagine what that feels like.
Yeah.
And then going out, once I was actually out in the bush, because it was a 12-hour drive from Johannesburg out to up to this very remote desert area where if I get up on a high mountain, I could almost get cell service. I mean, I could make a phone call.
Mm-hmm.
If I climb a mountain, I could do that, but I can't get internet. Most, because it's very, very remote place. And what we would have to do is get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go off into the desert. We would be like dropped off in some remote wilderness area, and we would stay there until 5 o'clock in the evening, wandering around the desert with walkie-talkies to keep in touch with each other as we all look for fossils. There was 10 of us out on this expedition. So imagine if the first couple of hours are okay, but the last couple of hours, it's up to 40 degrees Celsius. So it's like 102. And it just to be out in the sun all day like that, wandering up and down hills and jagged rocks and everything, that was a little tiring. I had to carry 6 liters of water on me, and I would still be out, by the time I got to the end of the day.
Really?
Yeah, and I didn't find many fossils. I felt embarrassed. I did have one very productive day. I got to the top of this ridge, very high, the highest area that I could get to around me, and I surveyed the place, and I saw a siltstone deposit that was away from everywhere else, where nobody else was exploring. So everything that I had been finding, or everything that they'd been finding up to that point, had always been in these siltstone deposits. So that's where I went, and I found a boneyard.
Oh, really?
I was feeling completely superfluous, because everybody else besides me was a PhD, and they're finding stuff everywhere we go, and I hadn't found squat yet, not one actual bone. And to make it worse, I kept finding things that were not bone that I thought was bone, and I would show it to somebody and say, "No, that's a rock." And so, but then I get to this one area that I surveyed, and feeling very frustrated, like, why am I even here? And I finally picked up this one rock that it was a black rock, and it had an unusual shape to it. So maybe, and as I turned it over and looked, I saw the sponge texture that you get from bony cells.
Right.
And I realized I'm holding a vertebrae.
Cool.
And suddenly I got very excited. I finally found an actual bone, and within an hour, I had a couple dozen bones. Ribs and femurs and more vertebrae, and even the brain case. I found a brain case, a very highly detailed brain case, but unfortunately, the muzzle part it wasn't a complete skull. It was just the back of the skull, but it was very detailed and I thought very beautiful. And one of the things that I had in my hand was a vertebrae about this big for Titanosuchus, or what we believe was a Titanosuchus, because it was so huge. The vertebrae was so huge that it had to belong to like the biggest thing that was in the area at that time. And the strata that we were working at was dated to 262 million years.
Really?
So we knew we're not going to find dinosaurs here. You know, we're not going to find. We're certainly not going to find mammals. Everything that we were going to find is either going to be a parasaur or it was going to be a therapsid.
Gotcha. Well, I bet it was. I kind of kept up with it on the Facebooks, and it seemed like, you know, I mean, you showed pictures of you sleeping under a bush and those kind of things, and it reminded me a lot of West Texas. I'm from West Texas, so.
Yeah, the slight difference is the most dangerous thing that I came across. I mean, there's snakes, of course, and I found a number of leopard tortoises and stuff like that. But the only dangerous thing that really came across was there was these two things that I get up on top of a hill and I see these two things running really fast, and I'm trying to tell from this great distance what they are. And I would have guessed that they were wolves had I been on another continent, but they couldn't be wolves here. And then it took some time to me to piece together they were baboons.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah, and they were moving at speed. I mean, these things were fast.
Wow.
And the surprising thing was, as I'm watching this, I'm looking down in the valley, and there's my team of people that are working around this fossil that they're excavating. I'm surveying the surrounding area to see where I want to go, and I see these two baboons run right past my team, right behind them, and somehow these guys didn't notice the baboons running right behind them. But the thing that alarmed me was the size of these things. So they're like as big as some people, you know, big as a small person, but there's two of them. They're both male, and at being that fast and that silent, kind of alarmed me a little bit.
Well, aren't they stronger anyways than a human?
Yeah, fortunately, baboons are not really interested in attacking people most of the time. But I had been warned. I was supposed to. The original plan was that I was supposed to go to Cape Town. And I ended up having to scratch Cape Town off of the tour because it would have meant abandoning the expedition, and I didn't want to do that. But I had been told that there are baboons living in Cape Town, and there's places in Cape Town where baboons are allowed to be. And they said that if a baboon takes something from you, don't try to get it back.
Yeah.
Well, now that I have an idea how big these things are,
You're like, I wouldn't have done that.
and I already know what their teeth look like. Okay. It's like a monkey mated with a lion.
Yeah, I've seen them. I've seen it. What I've seen on the. Yeah, I'm allergic to their saliva. I can guarantee that.
This woman was telling me she was from Cape Town, and she told me this very alarming story that she's sitting in traffic one day, and a baboon opened her car door and sat in the seat next to her, closed the door, and sat in the seat next to her and looked at her. And she didn't know how to respond, so he grabbed her bag, opened the car door, and got out of the car with her bag.
Really?
So they've lived in the city for a while. They're smart. They learn how to open and close doors.
Yeah.
So
That's wild.
How?
Pretty soon they're using stone tools, right? Making their own.
Which makes me wonder, I mean, whether you're ever going to have a second ascension of species based on the coattails of the first. No,
I think that it is possible that apes and stuff, or monkeys, somebody, you know, goes into the Stone Age. I don't think it's impossible at all.
Well, no, they're already doing that. We've found chimpanzees making stone tools and such. I mean, so that's happening.
But what I meant by that is not that it could happen, but it becomes a thing where they start doing that in general. Like all of them start, you know, just like there's evidence, you know, before of, you know, massive use and continual use. But I know because monkeys, I know even some other apes and stuff, or baboons, I know they can learn from their environment, so they can be taught. Like if one learns how, they can teach others. But if that becomes pervasive, is what I meant. Like all of them start doing it. I don't think that's an impossibility. Evolution can happen again.
Yeah, what I was hoping was that when you have this established civilization, that other animals would adapt to that and ascend their intelligence based on it. but we would have to have something where selective for intelligence that would aid that in happening. Like in cities where you have a monkey population, like langurs in India, for example.
Yeah.
The downside is that we don't have the people and monkeys living side by side with mutual respect for each other. I mean, where you might have that is like in Gibraltar, the what they call the Barbary apes, which are actually macaques, right? Those will mill about through a crowd of people, and as long as you don't touch them, then you're fine. But I tried to take a picture of this one monkey in Agra in India, and the monkey got really upset at me pointing a camera at her. I mean, she's like ready to rip my face off only because I'm pointing. Okay.
Yeah.
So monkeys in India, they're all about crime. So there's a lot of mugging and theft and that sort of thing that they do, and we don't have as yet any kind of a balance for how to select. How do I even put this? Monkeys that want to be mutually respectful.
Right.
There's not a societal situation where we can cohabitate this way without, deliberately antagonizing each other. And I was hoping it wouldn't be monkeys. I was hoping it would be something else. I was hoping it would be like a raccoon, right? That raccoons would develop some urban skills. The sad thing is that raccoons, strangely, I asked this one geneticist at a conference why it was that we have raccoons in North America, we have raccoons across Northern Asia, and they seem to be the same. I mean, you've got something slightly different in South America. You've got I forget what Cotamundi is basically a variant of a raccoon, but otherwise in the Northern Hemisphere, raccoons are the same all the way around the world. And I asked, why is that? And he said that what they had noticed was that raccoons had a remarkably low mutation rate such that they don't evolve. So that they are basically karyotypic of procyonids. They are procyonids, but they're karyotypic of the ancestor of dogs, bears, and weasels. So raccoons have changed very little in the last 10 million years at least.
Yeah.
I just want to introduce Jay real quick, my friend from the Nevermore Tavern channel. I asked him to step in since Jim Majors couldn't join us or didn't join us. My fault again, totally my fault. But Jay's going to step in for a little while. Hi, Jay. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How about yourself?
Doing good. Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, not a problem.
Yeah. Didn't mean to interrupt you, Aaron. Carry on with y'all's visit.
I'm just a little embarrassed because mine is the wimpiest beard in the room, I think.
And mine's not for the first time.
It's funny because I always say I have the third best hair on YouTube. The only two people that beat out me is you and Neil the 604 Atheist. So,
yeah, he has an awesome name.
So I'm like, so it was like, there's only two other people with better hair than me. And there's two of them. So the only one we're missing is Neil.
Yeah, if we can get
Neil. We have the best
on.
hair on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't have much of that.
Sorry, Damien. We were.
So, Jay, I've been rambling for a while. What's your story?
Well, I used to be known as End the Conspiracy, and I did a whole bunch of different things back then. But as of basically the turning of the new year, I've switched over to different format of style. Now I do interviews with people, get to know the person behind the YouTube more. I do meet and greets. I'm starting on hosting debates, things like that. So I'm branching out a little more. Right now I do have a couple of series. I've got one on symbols.
That's a good show.
The background on symbols, and then I'm also doing a series of videos on serial killers. So that's basically me in a nutshell. I've been doing this for about a year. Actually, you were one of the first people I started watching in the atheist community, so to speak, way back a year ago. So it's actually, full circle a year later. Now I actually get to meet you in person. It's really an honor for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
When when I first started, okay, so I actually didn't get to properly introduce myself. I do several different series of videos. Quickie with the Skeptic, Evil God Monster of Abraham. I also have this show. This show wouldn't be here had it not been for Jay and Chris, the atheist pastor, and all of those friends, Math Pig, all those people. You'll probably get invites from at least a couple of them. All of them are content creators. All of them do something similar. And had it not been for those awesome, wonderful people, this show wouldn't be here at all. I appreciate it. I wish I could get them all on at once. I just can't. I'm sorry I couldn't. All you friends out there who are watching, I wish I could have gotten you on. I just can't. Real quick question for you, Aron, from the chat. Somebody in the chat, Link Thomas, he wants to know what your favorite metal band is. You kind of look like a metal person to him, and he's a fellow metal person, and he wants to know what your favorite band is.
Well, it's always been Black Sabbath, but and I want to say Motorhead, except that Motorhead refused to identify as metal.
Okay.
Lemmy always said that we play rock and roll, both kinds of music. Yeah, but now that neither of those are a thing anymore, I have to look elsewhere, and so I think in this moment, at this moment,
Okay.
is probably my favorite band. And there's a number of other like black metal bands that I'm quite fond of. Most of the ones, strangely, that have a female vocalist, there's just something about when you get a woman that can roar like that, that I just find that fascinating.
I haven't seen a lot of those. Yeah, I guess I'll have to look into them. I've been so busy doing the channel.
A good example of that would be like Archangel, for example, or Ginger.
Yep.
Yeah, but the videos for like Archangel, you get a woman who looks amazing, and then she's so she's every bit feminine, but then she also roars.
Like OTEP?
And Ginger, the vocalist, is quite astounding because she can both sing and roar.
Really?
And it comes off very well.
Do you like OTEP? That's got a female singer.
Yeah, she's scary. Yeah, I like her a lot. Just the power that she exudes is quite impressive.
Yes.
Aron, I'm sorry. I've seen pictures of you when you were young, and you look very similar than you look now. Were you always? Because I'm not really.
No. I was good looking then.
Who told you that? And he's writing down, that's the last time I'm going to be on his show. No, yeah. How long have you been doing the atheist activism? Have you always been an atheist? Did you have a coming out story? Of course, Neil, the 604 atheist, you know him. He gets on to me if I ask too many how you became an atheist questions. He'll verbally assault me in the chat if I do that.
Well, for a long time, I mean, it's kind of an embarrassing story, and I've told it many times, but I'll give you a quick summary. I was a child in the early 70s in Los Angeles. And so, I mean, I grew up mostly in and around LA at a time when, like there's hippie spiritualism. So I was taught all kinds of woo. And I was taught, my family taught me that skeptics were cynics who were missing out on the big picture that only true believers could understand. So it didn't occur to me that what they were doing was promoting make believe.
Yeah.
And that's really what faith was make believe. I didn't get that. I was taught all these spiritual things about trying to, like reading auras, for example, was just training yourself to see just beyond what your eyes could physically see, which means make shit up.
Right.
But I didn't realize that yet. So I was Christian because I was taught that, that Jesus and God was a conclusively proven scientific fact. I didn't realize I'd been lied to. But I was never a creationist, and I never believed in Jesus on faith. I just, believed what I was told. And I was told that it was as absurd to question the existence of God as it would be to question whether we really have a president. That both would be like conspiratorial kind of thinking. And then as I grew up, when I was as a teenager, I remember having a rebirth in Christ moment. And that cured me, really, because My best friend in high school at that time, who is now a fundamentalist Baptist preacher, when I had this rebirth experience, I'm like wandering around in elation and euphoria, and I finally pulled my senses together enough to ask this guy, how do I know that what I'm feeling is really the power of Jesus, and that I'm not, that it's not demons, or that I'm not fooling myself some way? And so he grabs me by both shoulders and with this huge beaming smile says, just keep telling yourself it's Jesus until you believe it.
Yeah, that's how you know truth.
Yeah, so he was one of those fake it till you make it kind of make believers. So his sentiment was so incredibly dishonest that was my last instant as a Christian. And in my evaluation of religion thereafter, I lost God pretty quickly. The concept of a God just didn't make any sense to me. However, I still believed in supernatural things because I thought there was evidence of it. I had been raised with all kinds of pseudoscience documentaries. I thought that there was evidence for psionic aptitude, like telepathy and what is it?
ESP?
No, telekinesis and a number of other things. I thought that there was evidence for these things because I was given all this pseudoscience stuff on TV, right? And it had to be real because you saw it on TV.
Yeah, there's a video.
Yeah, and so I started investigating all of these things, and eventually, one by one, all these things that I used to believe in fell away. Until the one thing that held me together was that the scientific evidence of life force or soul, and that was Kirlian photography. And I watched this thing called In Search Of that was hosted by Leonard Nimoy, like in 1974 when I was 12. And it's Leonard Nimoy, right? Everything he says sounds logical.
Of course.
Right.
So he's giving a presentation on Kirlian photography. You take a leaf and you put it between these photoelectric plates, and the photoelectric plates takes a picture of the electrical field rather than a regular photograph. And you see this leaf, and it's made out of phosphorescent blue sparks, and you can see all the veins in the leaf and the texture and everything. And then they cut the leaf in half, and they take the picture again. And at first, you only see the half of the leaf that you would expect to see, but then on an overexposure, you get to see the other half of the leaf too, and that was proof that it was a life force there. At least it was to my 12-year-old mind when I think I'm watching a science documentary. So as an adult, we get the internet. One of the first things I look up is say, hey, I want to see what they found, what's the advances in Kirlian photography since that time. And the first thing I come across was Leonard Nimoy admitting that everything that they did in that show was bullshit just for entertainment purposes.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Right away, I find that admission. And I'm like, so that was the thing. That ended up being like the last linchpin that there was a supernatural at all. Anything. And that went away. And then I went to talk to an author like the same day. I had this scheduled interview with this author, and I was asking him about this, and he said that you're an atheist. And up until that time, I thought that I'd always accepted all these lies about what an atheist is. That an atheist is supposed to know that there's no God, that an atheist believes in nothing, not believe in anything, but believes in nothing, which is a different context.
Right.
That all these impossible things that an atheist had a completely unreasonable position. I didn't realize that what an atheist really was and already was from the time the word was invented until before Huxley invented his word agnostic. The word always originally meant that somebody who lacked a belief in theism.
Right. It's still that.
The first use of the word was the Romans criticizing the Christians because they just made up a religion like just 20 minutes ago. They didn't have these thousands of years of established theology. So that's what they were making fun of. They called the Christians atheists because they lacked their theism. They're worshiping a guy who was supposedly just killed.
Right.
As opposed to God. So that's what the first application of that word. And later, it simply became anybody who is not convinced that an actual deity really exists. And ultimately, that's the only definition that works, because in all of the ideology, you die, you're supposed to go to pearly gates and everything, and there's this one question Did you believe? Yes or no?
Right.
You believe in God? Okay, you can be forgiven. If you didn't believe in God, you can't be forgiven. That's it. I would love to see the agnostic up there trying to justify his, well, I didn't believe in God, but I didn't not believe in God either.
Right.
And then, St. Peter would be, well, that means you didn't believe in God. Go to hell. So there's absolutely no purpose for you pretending to be this middle of the road fence sitter, you undecisive piece of shit.
See, and Chris thinks it was only me that's like an anti-agnostic. No,
No, it's not.
Honey is also an anti-agnostic, or at least not agnostic.
Right. Well, okay, all right. Mine's more complicated than that. I say that just to avoid fights. I don't want to waste my time debating over what's an agnostic and what's an atheist. I just say, okay, I'm this. Fine, let's move on. Real quick, I want to say Neil has shown up because he does that. Like a stalker, and he has noticed he's not really sure if Aron is really Aron. He wants to know who you are and what you've done with Aron Ra, because you don't have a beer in your hand, and if you don't have a beer in your hand, you can't possibly be Aron Ra. Point made. I'm just saying.
Okay, well, need I point out that it's like not even 9 a.m.
I feel you. Okay, all right. So I'll let you slide on that one, and then somebody else.
Well, I'll cover for you because I have a beer. It's 9 a.m., but I work third shift, so it's actually 9 p.m. for me.
Ah, I see. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. All right, you win. You win. Also, I've got. I wrote it down. I don't know who I asked. I'm sorry. I think it was Granny. No, it was Paul. Paul Kamish would like to know how you met your wife. Did you convert her first?
My wife?
Yeah, Miss Lilandra. Let me see Lilandra.
That's an amusing story.
Yes. Did you convert her, or how'd that work?
Yeah, she was an old Earth creationist. She had
Really?
young children at that time, and she was living in West Texas then. And there were like no social circles, and the only like meetup group that they had online was like the Friends of Mike Huckabee.
Oh,
so extremely right-wing extremist religion. And so she was just looking for like intelligent human conversation. And so she was working in a Christian school at that time, she gets on Christian forums to have discussions with people from, her own home. I get on Christian forums because I was chasing down bullshit arguments, and there were a lot of them coming from there. So I end up in Christian forums arguing with her, and I told her that I could prove that evolution was a thing, that to her satisfaction, that evolution is real and true, or whatever, or that it actually happens. Truest, best explanation there is for the origin of our species, the only one with evidentiary support or scientific validity, that kind of thing. And whereas every time I make this challenge, the person that I'm facing usually disappears. There's only been like a dozen times that somebody takes the offer and then they vanish, right? As soon as they realize that I'm making sense. Suddenly there's no more communication. And with her, she was the only person that ever went all the way through it. She went to fruition. And I convinced her that evolution was real, and that totally ruined her life. Because she was working in a Christian school, so of course she got fired. Right? She wasn't a creationist anymore.
Right.
You can't be accepting scientific truth and and believe in God truth, because one of them isn't truth at all.
Right.
And so then there was social issues, and her husband was trying to pretend to be some evangelical religious extremist, and so there was the whole her whole world kind of collapsed. Simply because she wasn't a religious extremist anymore.
Really? Yeah.
So pretty quickly, she ends up, fired and divorced and all like that, and ends up with me as the only person she could go to. And she started making me a better person as soon as she got a hold of me, and then that's kind of where that went.
So yeah, she fixed you too, huh?
Yeah, because I was a bit of a dick back then.
Back then, huh?
Yeah, I was not the charming sheriff you see before you.
Me too. People think now that I'm all about kindness. Yeah, I was into violence and stuff, so it was definitely my wife's kindness that helped me be more kind.
I wrote a sci-fi book. I've got my own sci-fi universe. I haven't published the book yet. I've got 2 more planned. I've got all blah 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 blah. When I first started writing it, it was like atheists take up and they go away. They go colonize somewhere else, the moon or something. I don't want to get into it. But the atheists get up, and I was writing at the second chapter. This guy comes out and he's like, "This is why we're leaving, because you guys suck. Because these people kill these people, and these people." And my wife, who I newly married, was still a Christian. Now, if you go read the manuscript, it's much, much softer, a lot less anti-Christian. Because I was just raging. I was still, look at this person just killed this group of people over here, and look at these people beheading the Islam and everything. So yeah, kind of. She fixed me, made me almost normal.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a thing on us to feel like we would be better if we did leave, but actually we're better if we stay. It's better if we interact with these people that are theists and help them get out of it.
So in your notion, you said you had your own universe.
Mm-hmm.
And I often argue with idealists, which I find completely annoying. That they say that nothing exists except God, which means that we are not even real.
Okay.
We are just figments of God's imagination.
Okay.
And somehow they want to say that even though God imagined us and God knows what we're going to do before we do it, so we don't have any choice in the matter.
Okay.
And we will cease to exist when God wakes up, I guess. Depending on which interpretation of idealism you like. Then I have to wonder, do the people in your universe that you made up, do they have free will?
Well, my universe is, I hadn't really put that kind of thought into it. It's, I guess they don't. I create their will.
Exactly.
It depends on how you mean it.
The way I looked at it is God is Rod Serling.
Okay.
He wrote episodes of Twilight Zone. He knows what's going to happen before it happens. He wrote the story, right? So he knows the bad guy, or the people who are selfish and cruel, they're going to get their just desserts in the end, right? So he's constructed it that way,
Right.
And he existed before he put the video on. Maybe he did it back in the days of VHS tapes. Before he puts the tape in the VCR, he already existed. He continues to exist after it's over. So he is beyond the time of all of the episodes. And he's decided, he knows what's going to happen. So if you can't play it any differently, then you don't have free will. How could you?
Right.
If we can be prophetic, if God can know what we're going to do before we do it, then we can't surprise him.
Or make him angry.
Testing our faith. Look how many times God does something to test somebody, as if he didn't already know. Absolutely. Now, either God doesn't already know, or he's just being a dick.
It's a trap. I wish I had "it's a trap" graphic to just pop up there. It's a trap.
Yeah, he's a dick. I mean, we don't need to analyze it too deeply. I mean, if the Bible person is not a dick, then I don't think that the word is accurate. I mean,
so when we meet God, he's going to be the smarmy guy with the Brill Cream style hairdo who says, "Imagine if you will."
A world run by a dick.
Yeah, I don't know.
I have a problem though with the idea of a really truly malevolent God being real, because wouldn't a malevolent God then show himself and then enjoy the terror of the actual reality of existing?
Well, the only problem that I have with the God characters, I could easily imagine a God conceiving the universe, right? Let's just pull out all the stops and imagine that we are all imagined out of nothing. We are all a dream of Brahma.
Okay.
God made us all up, and so the only thing that exists is the mind of God and so forth. And the problem is when God wants to sort us out, to either give us the impossible promise of a posthumous reward, or threaten us with a fate worse than death if we don't believe. That's the part that does not make any sense.
Yeah, I agree.
So even if a God exists, evolution is still true, the Bible is still false. All of the holy books are still false.
Right.
There still is no heaven and hell. There still is no judgment of morality. God does not care if you believe in him or not, because why would a God care if you believe in him? If he wanted you to believe, he knows how to do that. He knows how to convince us. He knows how to show up, right? He knows how to write his message in space for all of us to see in whatever language. He would have given us in a Bible, there would have been things in the Bible. The things in the Bible would not be there. Instead, there would be all kinds of instructions telling us about what microorganisms are and what's the importance of washing your hands and purifying your water. These sorts of things would be in our Bible instead of all the shit that is in there. And so there's still no truth to any religion if there is a God.
Godless Granny from the chat would like to ask. She has a channel too. A lot of the people in the that I have in my channel in my chat have channels. But Godless Granny would like to know if you and the missus made it to Incest and Genocide Park for the ARC protest.
My wife did not go this last time, but I did.
Gotcha.
And I still intend to go this year, depending on how much of the world is left after the plague.
Right, yeah. I'm rooting for it. Hopefully. Build the channel. Hope for the best.
Yeah, I talked to somebody yesterday. I was there's a celebrity in the UK that I wanted to get both to speak at American Atheists, and also wanted to get an interview with her the next time I'm in her country. And I'm like, I'm going to be there in September, because my trip was canceled, postponed, relocated. And she's saying that she's not going to make any plans right now, not until she knows how this awful pandemic plays out.
Yeah.
I don't know how to address that either. This is an interesting time. This is certainly unprecedented. I'm glad that I'm in one of those situations where my job doesn't depend on tips.
Right.
That I'm not like somebody in that case. I mean, when I was a laborer, I used to work for a bricklayer, and I used to get paid in cash daily.
Yeah.
And what kind of protection are there for people like that, right?
Nothing.
So I feel for people in a very trying situation, and it really frustrates me in these times that we have the religious right. There's two things, both things that the religious people are doing. One of them is when they close down their faith healing sessions because of the coronavirus.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's just an open admission that they know they're full of shit. They know that it's all about pretend, that they're just make-believers, and there's no truth to what they believe, but they're going to believe it anyway, because they are make-believers. They are pretenders. And then we have the other ones that are far worse. The people like Kenneth Copeland, who I just mentioned, and a handful of others. Like there's someone down in Austin who invited all these people. He wants to have 500 people in his church, and we'll lay hands on you if you're sick with the coronavirus. That's a great idea. We had 47 people get coronavirus from a church service.
Right.
Well, just like that thing we were talking about there down in Texas, where they told them not to do the vaccine, and then here they go, everybody's getting sick from it. Well, it was Kenneth Copeland, wasn't it? Wasn't it his church?
It was Kenneth Copeland again. He's one of the worst people
Yeah,
ever.
yeah. Isn't he the same guy who was out? We see a thing on it. He's reaching out towards the camera, and his hands all wet, and he's praying.
Yeah, his hands all wet. Yeah.
And he's blessing people of the coronavirus. That's the same guy, right?
That's him.
Okay.
That's the same guy. He had a follower who was dying of cancer, who also happened to be a lottery winner, and so she gave an undisclosed fortune to this guy. Her own family, this lottery winner, their family has never determined how much money she gave him, but they say that she is the reason that he bought his $20 million Citation jet. That this was paid for with the lottery winnings from this one person who just wanted to be cured of cancer. So she dies of cancer, and Kenneth Copeland now has a jet.
Yeah, they never make those with stipulations. I mean, all right, so I've got this idea. I had this idea a long time ago. I've joked about it several times about selling soul swords. So, Aron, when you die, you don't want to go to heaven and then have to come back and kill us non-believers with a shitty, crappy sword. So I'm going to sell you a soul sword. And what happens is you send me $500, and I'm going to make this soul sword, Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pray. And an angel is going to make this soul sword for you and you alone. And when you die, you will have this soul sword. And then during Revelations, you will be able to come and slaughter all of the good people, or the bad, wicked people here. Now, here's the catch, brother. I know you have your doubts. What if it's not quality? What if it's not a good sword? So I've got a bell on my wall, and after you die, within half an hour, if you're not happy with your purchase, ring that bell, and I'll give you all your money back.
You know, I have a friend named Ivan Stang who invented the Church of the Subgenius, also known as the Church of Bob.
The church, okay.
And his slogan is, triple your money back on a lifetime guarantee, right? You will eternal salvation, or triple your money back.
Yeah.
Which I think is wonderful, because you have to die to get your refund.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I had a friend. I still have this friend, and now that I'm not traveling anywhere anymore, I guess I can go down to this guy's house for a barbecue that was long overdue. I have an old buddy named Morbid, because he both into gothic metal and also horror movies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And he kind of looks like Alice Cooper. But anyway, this guy had a beautiful thing about how to lend money. He wouldn't lend you money.
Mm-hmm.
He would buy your soul.
Oh. Okay.
So he made out this contract. If you wanted $20 from this guy, he would write out this contract and prick your finger in blood so that you had to stamp it with a bloody fingerprint.
Does he have upper limits? I mean, my soul is worth more than $20. It's going to cost him. But I'm willing to negotiate.
Well, yeah, people would often say, this is like the 1980s, everything was cheaper, and people would often say, "Hey, can I borrow $20?" So, no, you can't, but you need to walk out of here with $20. This is how we do it. I just loved that, because there was a lot of people that would go way out of their way to make sure they paid him back so they could get that piece of paper back.
Of course, yeah. Well, with Christians, it's often joked about that sort of thing. They you can do anything and they can just pray it away later. I get forgiven. But yeah, something like that kind of seems a little more.
Well, see, I'm just ensured that I can't be damned, because Morbid owes my soul already, and we saw that in an episode of The Simpsons.
I see. Maybe that's what I ought to do then. Just sell it off to the highest bidder. Highest bidder. No beer though. Let me see if I can get this going here. I just want to again shout out and say thank you to everyone in the chat. We'll go here in a minute. I'll let y'all run. It's been an hour, but if you want to stay, if you got a few minutes, I have a couple of more questions that I would like to distract you with, if possible. Primarily, to be honest, just to keep the show going, really. How long have you, what have you got going forward? What's up next for Aron Ra?
Well, I don't even know, because everything got canceled.
Yeah, okay. All right, well, let me change the question then. Since everything got canceled, so you don't know yet. You're not sure. I haven't figured it out.
Yeah, well, I'm still, the next thing that hasn't been canceled yet is... I'm supposed to do something in June. I'm supposed to speak, I think, in Baltimore. I'm going to be in Baltimore in mid to late June, and I'm supposed to do a debate online while I'm up there, and I'm also supposed to speak while I'm up there. I don't yet know the details about all that.
Yeah, whether or not that'll still go. I was supposed to go to American Atheist over in or I was trying to. Yeah, me and the wife had already prayed over it and everything. And we were
in July. I'm supposed to be at the Ark Encounter again.
Okay.
But again, all of that is tentative.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can't remember what was August, but I know in September I'm supposed to be back in the UK. And there's 2 or 3 things they're lined up for that week or two. But no solid details, because it's too far in the future.
Well, I'm really hoping we can.
I was going to say, you're welcome to come on our show if you want, the History Voyagers. And we're doing our first series on Göbekli Tepe. I don't know if you probably heard of that. And so we're doing 10 videos on all kinds of different facets of Göbekli Tepe.
Yeah. So far, it's been a lot of fun. I'm actually working on the first video now. We've recorded it, and we're going to produce it. They're scripted videos. They're not live. nothing like that. But I think that's way after your time, isn't it, Aron? You're more into the paleontology, old stuff, way old. Am I wrong? Or
Yeah, it's funny how many Americans don't understand the difference between archaeology and paleontology.
Yes,
They
sir.
Oh, I
actually
understand
do the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why they think that carbon dating is used for,
Right.
for paleontology.
Yeah.
Yeah, my favorite period was the one that I just explored,
Mm-hmm.
being the Permian.
Yeah. I bet that was such a. How long have you been wanting to do that? Go specifically there for Africa.
Well, yeah, there's a there's a Permian exposure here in Texas in the Permian Basin,
Mm-hmm.
but that's all marine.
Oh, right.
And the only places where you can get any shoreline Permian in the United States, it's going to be early Permian, so you get like Dimetrodon.
Hmm.
And I was more interested, and although I love Dimetrodons, I'm more interested in later, like Thrinoxodon and that era,
Right.
because it was a complete ecosystem of all sorts and we had their version of the bison, shut up, dog. Their version of the bison, their version of deer, their version of gophers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, of course, they're major predators and all of that. You had this whole system, but it was completely different animals filling those niches. And the crocodile, for example, their version of a crocodile was a salamander, 30 feet long.
Wow.
Really?
That's a big lizard.
That's yeah. That's,
Imagine being eaten by a newt.
yeah, a really big angry newt. Yeah, well, I knew that you were into that sort of thing, and I'm actually from the Permian Basin. Are you from the Permian Basin too? I heard you were from that region. I'm from Midland, Odessa.
Well, I lived in El Paso for a long time, but no, I'm not from the Permian Basin.
Gotcha. Because we somebody, I don't remember who I was talking to. We were talking about you, and we were talking about whether or not you would. Actually, what we talked about was the smell of the Permian Basin as you drive through it, going from El Paso to Texas or to Dallas or something like that. So
Interesting thing about the Permian Basin in Texas, like what you're talking about, Midland, Odessa, and the place I just was in South Africa, they're both scorched earth, parched damn desert. I mean, the last time I was in Odessa in the summertime, I felt like I was walking through a microwave.
yeah,
It was
rough. It's rough. I put in 20 years in the oil field out
radiation.
there. Oh yeah. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you all stopping by. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, Aron Ra. Thank you very much. I'm very appreciate you coming on the show, and thanks, Jay, for coming in and stepping in for Jim. I got to tell everybody again, it was my fault, not Jim's fault. If I can get a hold of Jim, I'll get him on the show again later. But thank you all for showing. Thank you, everybody in the chat who showed up. Aron, naturally, I'm going to have to try to get you on the show again in the future. Thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Yep. Been good.
All right, everybody. Take care. Have a wonderful day. Thank you again.
All right.
Bye.